Hi guys, I'm Kat and welcome to the first episode of season 2 of the Dead Parent Club podcast, and I am very excited. We have a brand new sound and a brand new person joining us.
Yep, I'm Emma and I am part of the Dead Parent Club. I'm going to be joining Kat on every single podcast. We're friends, aren't we, Kat? We've known each other for a while.
I mean, yeah, you'd hope so.
Yeah.
At this point.
More than associates by now. And we did this a year ago. I can't believe it's been like a year since I was on the podcast with you. And we just want to jump on this journey together now.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for so long, so I'm so excited to finally get to the point where we can record together. So each week we'll be talking about what it's like to be members of the Dead Parent Club. We'll be chatting to some amazing guests about their grieving journeys and just trying to be helpful where we can, and just carry on being that kind of friendly voice down your ear as you navigate this new normal.
Exactly that. We just want to be here for you. We want to be here as a voice and an ear for you. And obviously, me and Kat will do all we can to help you, but we aren't qualified to help in every aspect. So we are going to be chatting to people who are far more qualified than us, like counsellors, solicitors, medical professionals, mindfulness coaches, all about grief and looking after yourself as well, because it's so important, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So welcome everybody to the Dead Parent Club podcast.
Why did I want to clap then?
Woohoo!
I feel like we should start with your story.
I mean, yeah, because obviously there'll be some old listeners, there'll be some new listeners, so I think it'll be the kind of great opportunity to tell you all about where this came from, because I feel like people like look at the name or hear the name, the Dead Parent Club, and straight away they're a bit like, oh God, like that's brutal. But then after a second, like when you're part of the club, you're like, oh, well, losing a parent is pretty brutal, to be fair. So yeah. I suppose it makes sense.
Yeah, it does exactly what it says on the tin.
Absolutely. So. And I feel like if you're anywhere and you've seen Dead Parent Club, if you're in that club, you're going to look at that and be like, oh my God, that's me. Like, that's talking to me.
And I don't think, I know, because losing my mum at 18, I don't remember seeing anything anywhere about anybody like me.
Yeah. No.
Anyone to help me, anyone to talk to. Do you remember that?
Oh my God, no. I know my mum died 5 years ago, and even then, you know, there was nothing. And it's amazing now, the grief community online is huge and that's amazing. But yeah, even 5 years ago, there was just nothing there. And obviously there's some amazing charities and stuff, but I just really feel like there's that gap missing between children, between adulthood, and just, you know, as young adults, you're kind of in this, you're like approaching all this responsibility and this whole new life. And suddenly losing a parent, your kind of rug of like support gets stripped from underneath you. And you're like, oh my God. So that's basically what happened to me when my mum died. And yeah, I mean, you know, I was doing just that. I was looking around, there was nobody to support me. I was really lucky in the way that I had a friend, and we talked really openly about our grief, and we laughed about it and we cried about it. And that was basically how the podcast came about, because I was just like, I wonder if people could hear these conversations and actually find them useful, and like it can help them through their grieving journey. And honestly, little did I know that it would go on for this long, and I would talk to so many people. And now, you know, it's over 2 years down the line, and I've talked to young adults from all over the world who have lost a parent. I never imagined that this would be my life. If you had told me when my mum had died that I would do this, I'd be like, are you crazy? That is not a thing. But here we are. This is the Dead Parent Club, and, you know, this community is real. And I just feel incredibly blessed that I've got to have conversations with people that have taught me so much about grief and my own grief, and have helped me to grow. And
I think as well, like, you're right in what you say there, Kat. If we all cast our minds back to when you're a child, life, it lasts forever. Mm-hmm. Death is not a thing. It's something that you think might happen. Yeah, it happens in movies, but your parents don't die. And I think we look back as children, we think, it's your greatest fear, losing a parent, then being snatched from you. And I think the beauty of this community is that actually, if you could tell, you know, 6 or 7 year old you who was petrified of losing a parent, that actually one day that is going to happen, but you're going to have a whole group of people around you feeling exactly the same, with their arms open, waiting to talk to you and be there for you, who will understand how you feel. the reassurance of that is beyond measure, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, when I think about, being young and being scared to lose your parent, the first thing that comes to mind is, when you're in the supermarket and you lose your mum or your dad and you're walking around the aisles and you're like, oh my God, they've gone. Like, this is it. I'm alone forever. Imagine that when you're an adult. That's what it feels like.
That is literally it. It's like rabbit in the headlights. Like, oh, they've actually gone. This is real life Sainsbury's supermarket shit happening right now.
I'm going round and round the aisles. Like, what the hell am I doing with my life?
And do you know what? Like, I remember, because I lost my mum. My mum got poorly when I was 12. She got cancer. And she had MS as well, multiple, I can never say it, sclerosis. There we go. Not great with a lisp for that. She got that when I was 12. And I just didn't think she was ever going to die. And mum's cancer went, and you've obviously got your 5-year, you've got your remission. And I remember saying, oh, mum, you're 5 years. It's nearly up. And she had an appointment with the consultant. And lo and behold, the cancer was back. And mum suffered for almost a year and then died when I was 18. And I look back, I don't know about you, Kat, on that time in my life. And at the time when you're 18, you think you have got your shit together.
Oh my God, you do.
You think you're a grown-up.
Yeah.
Then a parent dies and you go, oh, this is what grown-ups have to do.
I'm 6.
Yeah, that is true. You just want to shrink into yourself and have somebody there to fix it. Now, I was so fortunate to have a wonderful nana who cushioned that blow a lot for me, who I already had a great relationship with. So in many ways, her pain was probably greater than mine because the natural cycle of life didn't happen. She lost her only child and I was scooped up by another mother figure who'd always been there for me. But I just remember, I went off to uni very quickly after mum died, and nobody that I knew, that I met in day-to-day life had lost a parent. And I handled my grief really unhealthily because I didn't understand what it was.
Well, nobody would have asked you about it either, right? You're in this new place, you're surrounded by new people who don't know your story. Who the hell's going to turn around and be like, how are you feeling about your mum dying right now?
I remember one night out, I didn't want to go on it. And it was like Chinese whispers around the first year halls. And it got back to me. And the reason I know it got back to me was because my best friend at uni was born out of this conversation. So I said, I don't feel like up for going on this night out. I'm having a bit of a low night. I'm just thinking about my mum and I'm a bit down. And it turns out that this girl had lost her dad on Christmas Eve around the same time, a few years earlier. And she'd heard through Chinese whispers that's why Emma's not coming out. It's because she's feeling sad. So the next day she texted me and said, do you want to go for some food? And she reached out to me, and that was a huge
I love that.
That was my first interaction with someone from the Dead Parent Club, and that helped beyond measure.
How powerful is that?
Oh, I mean, and to think that this community that we are a part of right now is like, it's like that on steroids, isn't it? It's like, how wonderful though that we have all suffered what is likely the greatest loss, and yet we all have each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just going back to your mum, do you want to share? I always think it's nice to kind of humanise the person that you've lost, right? I think that's something that we all miss doing. So, like, what was your mum's name? What was your favourite thing or your favourite memory that you remember as a child?
My mum, Jane, she was an English teacher at my high school, and she was, every child thinks it, but in my mind, my mum was the best human being on earth. I'll
fight you.
I didn't leave her side. I wouldn't go anywhere without holding her hand when I was 17. I'm joking. No, I managed to let go by that point. Growing up, as most young girls probably do, idolised my mum. She was everything I wanted to be. I used to rob her makeup. When I was 12, she'd find me with lipstick all over my face because I was decided I wanted to be like that. She'd go out and buy things, and then she'd have to buy 2 because I wanted it as well. She'd have to buy 1 for me, so I didn't end up taking it off her anyway. I just wanted to be my mum. She was my mum. The biggest compliment I can pay her is she always rooted for the underdog.
Love that.
She was a teacher, and I remember at school, you have the naughty kids, the kids that they call the naughty kids, and she loved them. She loved the naughty children. And I remember a girl telling me a story about she'd been given detention and she was stood outside, and my mum was walking down the corridor, and she said, What are you out here for? What have you done? And she said, I've been a bit naughty. And she said, what do you love? what is your passion? And she said, I love art, miss. She said, feed that passion. Go and do that. If you love art, go and do art. Do whatever is going to make you happy. And that girl told me that, and that stuck with me, because I thought she didn't dismiss people as that's a naughty child, or that. She looked into people and beyond that and saw the person they were, and her compassion and genuine, sincere care for people she didn't know was remarkable. So yeah, that was Jane.
I mean, I can tell, from knowing you, that she's given that to you as well, which I think, isn't that like the most beautiful part of grief, is when you can acknowledge things in yourself that you see your parent in.
I think you're right in that, and I think it helps with a little bit of closure, doesn't it? When you, when people say, "Oh, that reminded me of your mum," or when you go, "Oh, I remember mum's behaving like that," when you've just done something. It helps with the confusion of the loss, because you go, "Oh, I'm their legacy. That's what they left behind." Tell us more about your mum.
Oh God, Joanne Hooker. Wow, it's hard to know where to start. My mum didn't have an easy upbringing. She was born hemiplegic, so when she was born, she wasn't breathing. They didn't check, and she went quite a long time without getting oxygen to her brain. So she lived her whole life with disabilities. She couldn't use the left-hand side of her body properly, and from that really impacted her abilities to kind of do day-to-day things that everybody else gets to do. Like, she really struggled getting a job and her self-confidence. And I always think about because she couldn't use her left hand properly when she had us kids, she would literally, don't call childcare, she would literally pick us up by the back of a baby grow, like with one hand, and swing us around to her back like that.
Go on, Joanne.
But it's only now that I'm older, and this is what upsets me the most, because it's only as you get older that you realise these things, that I'm like, God, she had so much perseverance. Like, the fact that she brought up 3 children mostly on her own, because my dad worked full time and they moved away from her family and stuff, and she did all that by herself. And she was always, my family have like a running joke, my mum was always the first person in the water and the last person out at the beach. Like, she had such a lust for life. Like, she was always so excited about everything. And I've got an image of her now. Whenever she was like really happy or really excited, she would hop on one foot. I don't understand why. I think it's because she couldn't jump with both feet with her left leg. So like her left leg would be a little bit higher, and she would like be hopping on one foot and laughing and dead excited. And like, that's one of the moments now, whenever me and my dad have share a really happy moment or something, I always say to Dad, oh my God, Mum would be doing that like one hop laugh right now.
She'd be hopping on one foot.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that.
And those are the kind of memories that I hold on to. But my mum, it makes me upset, because she did have such a difficult life, and unfortunately the end was difficult. And she was diagnosed with cancer when I was 16, and then she had all the treatment. She got the all clear, similar obviously to your story. And then it was my first year at university. It was in the January, and I went to university in Lancaster. My dad used to work quite often in Preston, and he would sometimes pick me up after work and take me back home. And this night was no different. He picked me up, we got back, we were on the driveway, and he was like, oh, I wasn't actually in work today. And I was like, oh my God, you drove all the way from home to Lancaster to pick me up. I was like, why on earth have you done that? And then that was when he said, we've been to the hospital today for a checkup. Your mum's cancer is terminal and she's been given 2 years to live. And that's like, that moment on my driveway is when I'm like, oh my God, and I want to go back to that girl now and give her a hug, because what an atrocious, like horrible thing to hear at 18 years old, is it? Like, your mum's going to die. So yeah, but those kind of, year and a half came and went, and it's weird when you get a terminal diagnosis, because life carries on. Like, I was at university, that carried on. I was out partying, I got a boyfriend, my priorities changed. And even though I was told that my mum was going to die, I didn't believe it. Like, I was like, she's not going to die.
Why would you? You don't want to believe it.
You don't want to live every day, like waking up like, oh God, my mum's going to die.
Do you, because obviously everything that you did was really natural and normal. Do you feel any guilt for that?
Oh my God, mountains. Mountains of guilt. Grief guilt is real. Like, I felt we needed a whole episode on that, because that is such a real emotion that so many people struggle with. But like, there are moments when I was at home lying down in bed on my phone, and Mum would come in and lie next to me and want to have a chat, and I'd be like, what do you want? And I look back and I'm like, why were you like this? And my mum she did this she cycled from coast to coast. So she cycled from Whitehaven from the west coast to the east coast. This is when about 2.5 months before she died, she was pumped to heck with morphine. We found out after that she did it with a broken back, so she must have been in agony.
Oh, Joanne.
And honestly, she's an absolute
hero.
Yeah. And I had the opportunity to go and do that with her, but I went and saw my boyfriend instead. And I'm just like, God, like that sucks. That I could have been such a huge part of her, this momentous occasion in her life, but I wasn't. And it's those things where I always say it to other people and it doesn't help you, but I always say, they wouldn't remember those things. Like they do remember the good things. But I'm like, yeah, but she's not here now to remember that. I am.
And no, but that is grief, guilt in itself. And it is a perfectly natural emotion to feel. But I think there comes a point where you have to forgive yourself because do you know what? Your mum and my mum were 18-year-old girls once upon a time, out living their life. And actually, I think the person, if it is a terminal illness, for example, which is both of our experiences were, if they see you continuing your life as normal, I think it almost probably gave them some comfort because they're looking at you living your life and they can kind of go, they're going to be all right without me. They wouldn't want you by, I don't believe my mum wanted me by her bedside constantly. Every day. She used to go out and see your friends. And I like you, didn't believe my mum was going to die. It was only 5 days before she passed away that it hit me. Yeah. And I overheard a conversation and I was like, wow, my mum's about to die. So I phoned my friend and she said, talk to her. And I said, I can't talk to her. I just couldn't get the words out. She said, write a letter. So I went straight upstairs and wrote this painstaking letter to my mum, basically saying, I love you. You're the strongest woman I've ever known. And read it to her, gave it to her and read it to her on her deathbed as she was dying. Yeah. But I think in the same way you have those feelings of remorse and regret of time you think you could have and should have spent, we could, do you know what? We could have spent 95% of our time with our parents and we would have gone, still regret the 5%. Do you know what I mean? It is a real thing. And I also think, it's easy to say this, I know, but I don't believe that our mothers would want us to feel that guilt because what are we living for then? If we're going to harbour that, it is a real emotion. And I think it takes a long time to find peace with that guilt. I
definitely think it's a time heals kind of situation, 100%.
And I think as you grow up and as we get older now and, I know we've spoken about the fact that we would both like our own children one day. I think when you think about your child doing that in that situation, you go, I want you out living your life. Yeah. Go and enjoy yourself because I want you to be doing that when I'm gone. So I just think it's natural to feel that way, but I think it's something that you have to remember they wouldn't want you to feel. Yeah.
Well, going back to obviously both of us were given a terminal diagnosis. Did you ever have anybody say to you, it must have been a little bit easier because you knew that, that she was going to die?
Not directly. I've had people say to me when I've been upset, but you've got your nana. Or, and I'm like, but I've not got my mum. Or
doesn't help, hon.
Exactly. And also, I think a terminal diagnosis, it's one thing being told your parent's going to die, but it's another thing when your parent dies, isn't it? Because I don't know because I've never experienced my parent dying immediately and it being that kind of shock, but your legs still fall from beneath you and you still collapse on the ground and your world as you know it ends.
It feels just as sudden.
Yeah. You feel... the only way I can describe that moment is when your parent dies is the entire world is spinning faster than it ever has and you're on your knees and you've stopped everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
How was it for you?
I vividly remember the moment that she died, and I'm a true believer that PTSD with grief is a real freaking thing, and it's not spoken about enough. And again, that's a whole other episode and conversation because I know so many people that struggle with it, but that moment haunted me for years, and in a way it still does, but for a long time that was the only thing I could think about when I thought about my mum, and it's taken a long time for me to get to the point where I can think about the happy things as well as that moment. But I honestly, as soon as it happened, I was just like, everything just collapsed around me and I was just like, oh my God. And I was like crying. And then there's just a massive blur between that moment and then we were all pouring Prosecco in the kitchen about 15 minutes later. And I'm just like, how do these 2 moments into like, what's happened here?
But also it's what Mum would have wanted. Just drinking. Can I ask you a question, Kat? Because, I think with the illness that both our mums had, it's something people don't ask, but do you remember your mum now healthy or sick?
Sick. All the time, sick. I think because she's been sick, she was ill for like quite a lot of my teenage life and different mental illnesses and what have you. When I think about my mum being healthy, I think about me as like a 5-year-old and like having like mum cuddles and that kind of thing. But yeah, whenever I think about my mum, I think about her being ill in some form or another, and especially because she had cancer after I was 16, and that's kind of the most recent part of my life, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's a really common thing, isn't it? That you remember them in the latter stages, because that is, like you say, your most recent memory. So I remember Mum with, her wig, for example. That's how I remember my mum, with her wig. And I remember in her poorly bed in the dining room where, she was going to spend the last sort of month or 2 months of her life. And, that's another thing people don't talk about a lot, is that image is the lasting image you have then is of a poorly parent, isn't it?
People always say to you, remember the good times. Remember the good times. And you're just like,
well, there's a whole
you
chunk
freaking
of time.
try hard. Try to remember the good times when you've just watched your parent die, then come back to me, okay?
Yeah, thank you so much. Why didn't I think of that? Hang on, right.
Let me just envisage a time when she wasn't ill. Bear with.
But it does mean that days like Mother's Day are in some way or another difficult. It's a hurdle in itself. Before we talk about it, how do you feel on the approach to it?
I don't know about you, but I find the approach to Mother's Day a hell of a lot worse than the day itself. Like, all these kind of like emotions get built up in me, and like I'll find myself irritable, and I don't know why, but I do know why. It's because Mother's Day is coming up.
Yeah.
But then it's obviously all the advertising. Like, everybody always talks about how brutal the advertising is, and some of the messaging. I'm like, you need somebody on your team, guys, that's lost a parent, because you are very tone deaf right now.
Yep.
Like, it's the same for Father's Day, and Valentine's Day. But I feel like when it comes to the day itself, I got through the past, like, for the first couple of years by having like certain rituals that I would do. So I'm very much a family person, and I crave being around my mum's family because that's what makes me feel closest to her. She was one of 5, but it's actually one of 6, which is a long story. I've just found out that my mum had an adopted sister that was adopted before everybody was born. It's very chaotic. I've lost a mum, I've gained an auntie in the last year.
That alone is a podcast.
Yeah, it's pretty chaotic. So I've got loads of cousins and like I've got like nephews now and like godsons, goddaughters. I love them so much. But being with them makes me feel like I'm close to my mum. So every Mother's Day I would go to Wales and I'd spend the day with them. I'd stop off where we spread my mum's ashes in St Asaph, where she was brought up. I'd go there. I sing hymns to her because like one of the memories I've got of my mum is in the morning I'd wake up to her like hoovering or something and singing these like hymns really loud around the house. And at the time I'd be like, shut up. And now I go and sing.
Like, please, I want to hear them again.
I sit in like the graveyard hoping nobody comes in because I'm so tone deaf. And then I'll go into my family, and that's what would help me survive each Mother's Day. And obviously because of COVID, that was stripped from me last year. It's been stripped from me this year. It was stripped from me at Christmas. I think it's a situation that so many people can resonate with at the moment, as well as that there's certain rituals that they would usually rely on. Because I feel like with grief, it's rituals and routines that really help you through. Like, you know what to expect on that day if you pre-plan it a year in advance.
Yeah.
So now it is kind of like, it kind of hits you a little bit differently, I think, because you feel very isolated and alone. And, a lot of the people around you are in isolation or, social distancing with their families and with their parents. And kind of seeing other people have that and you not at this time of year can be much more difficult than for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is. I imagine it's been difficult more so for a lot of people with the COVID situation in the last year. Do you Do you write a card? Do you take anything to the grave?
I've never done anything like that. I just sometimes pick flowers, but there's sheep in the graveyard, so they eat them. So I'm like, what's the point?
Feed the sheep.
So I don't really have anything in particular like that. That just was the thing that I would do. And I think it's a lovely idea. I think. Do you write? I know you think
I write a card.
Yeah.
So every year, my focus has always been on, okay, so I've lost a mum. I don't have a mum to give it to, but my nana doesn't have a daughter to receive a card from. And so me and my nana just paint a picture of the only girls left in our family. We were until I lost my nana in June last year during COVID. So this is my first year without both of them. And it's my first year without any mother figure to give a card to him. Me, my mum and nana, cards are our number one thing above everything. It's like the written word.
Yeah.
We all, my nana and my mum and I, growing up, we all wrote poetry and just wrote, and it was like our thing, and we used to share them and read them to each other. And Nana loves a card with good words on the front. You always have to get a good word card. And Nana always has to be spelt with 2 N's on the front of it as well. So ordinarily I would get mum a card, but that in itself is a whole hurdle, because you go into a card shop and you're like, how do you say, excuse me, have you got any that are appropriate for dead mums here? Because all these say you make every day better. Thank you so much for all you do for me day in, day out. And actually she's not here. So I've learned that I just need to quietly navigate my way around the aisles looking for the most appropriate one. But what I do is, like the laminate that a card comes in, I put that sleeve back on so that the rain can't get to it, which means I never need to buy an envelope and everything. Anyway, I bought one the other day for mum, and the woman was like, putting it through, oh, you've not got an envelope with that. And without thinking, I went, it's all right, it's for a graveyard, it's for a gravestone. And obviously it says mum on it. And then we'd just been talking, and then she was like, babe.
Oh,
and I was like,
absolute social grenade.
But I didn't even mean to.
Yeah.
And then you want to apologise.
But it's your life, it's your reality.
Yeah, but then you feel bad because I'm like, and I wanted to be like, I'm really sorry if I've made you feel deeply uncomfortable. But then I was like, I'm going to make you feel more uncomfortable for apologising. And I can't apologise for having a dead mum because I didn't do it.
That can't happen.
Yeah, sorry. So this year, I am at a bit of a loss because the energy, normally I would just scoop Nana up and love her, and I would always write in the card a message from mum about thank you so much, you gave mum everything, and I know she'll be looking down on you and so grateful for your love every day, because I know that brought her a lot of comfort. And I would always put a card on mum's grave. And me and Nana had our little thing then. It was me and her, and we could go for some food. We'd go for food and celebrate. And
so it's the rituals every year that you rely on, right?
That is exactly it. It's like, and as well, it's almost like keeping myself busy.
Yeah.
Like if we go for some food, if I eat, I'm doing something I like because I get to eat, and we're celebrating mum.
But I bet you talk about her as well. Like it's an opportunity to actually speak about her, which you don't usually get.
That is exactly it, because in day-to-day life, it's not very often. I mean, to be fair, my grandparents are good at this. They bring her up a lot. But a lot of people just go, oh, I'll avoid that because it might make them feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But on a day like that, there's no choice, but you're faced with it. So I think this year for Mother's Day, I can't go anywhere. I can't be with Nana and Mum. I'll take some comfort in the fact that I know my Nana always wished she'd gone before my mum. So that, whatever there is in an afterlife, I don't know, but maybe they might be together, and maybe they might be holding out for me, going, we love you, and whether they're together or not, they're both within me, and I will just on Mother's Day have time to myself, which is just to think about them. I'll think about them a lot, and I think that is so important, not to run from those feelings, isn't it?
Yeah, I could not agree more. That's something that I always say to people is like, try, if you know a difficult day is coming up, even when it's like your own birthday, like try and allocate, and even if you pre-schedule it, like try and allocate a bit of time in your day to just sit and be quiet and think. And even if you like end up like writing like a letter to them, or writing in a journal or something, or going through old pictures on your phone, like I think it's important to sit with those emotions at some point, because the whole day can pass otherwise and you can just feel like crap.
Yeah, and do you know what? If if a thought scares you and you push it to the back of your mind, it's going to come back stronger. So exactly what you just said there, Kat, like let the thoughts be. Like don't put the pressure on yourself to think that you have to have a stiff upper lip. No, if you want to cry your eyes out all day, you do that.
Yeah.
Do whatever, even if you feel emotionally and mentally exhausted by the end of the day. Do it, like, just because you're getting it out then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's energy that needs to come out anyway, and it's going to come out at some point. So if you've got a day where you can go, do you know what? I'm wallowing today. Then go for it.
What better day is there than Mother's Day?
No, absolutely go for it.
Yeah.
And also, like you said about talking to family members or being near them, it might help to pick up the phone and speak to a friend. Like, my best friend Hannah, I've known her for 28 years. So she was like my mum's other daughter.
Yeah.
And do you know what, all my friends, because she was a teacher at the school, they all knew her and were taught by her, and they were always coming round anyway. So it's so nice just to hear those memories, isn't it? To chat about them. Oh, I remember in year 9 when your mum did this or whatever. And it's like, it brings them alive again, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
When people talk about them.
How do you feel about social media on these kind of days? Because I know that a lot of people go to social media to share memories, but I know a lot of people find it very, very triggering at the same time.
See, I fully understand why people might want to avoid social media, but I find it quite therapeutic. Look, there is no way that you've got to handle it in whatever way you choose. But actually, I take quite a bit of warmth scrolling through and seeing people with mums.
Appreciating their mums.
Yeah.
Even just for a day.
Yeah. No, but I do. I kind of like... Because I go, oh, that would have been what we would have been like. Like, I see, a photo and maybe they've tagged their mum and I'm like, oh, mum might have had Instagram and I'd have had to set her up on it. And I can fully understand why people might not want social media or might not want to look because it can hurt because you're looking at what you don't have.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what that is in life. It's going to be a bit painful if it's something that means something to you.
I think especially it depends on what stage you're at with your grief. Like, if it was very recent, I think, if I lost my mum in November, I think that first Mother's Day I found very difficult. But then after that, I did try and find some appreciation in other people's like kind words about their parent, or I do try and avoid mainstream social media. And since I started the podcast, I will just stick on like the Dead Parent Club Instagram, so I won't go to my personal one. I'll just stay on the Dead Parent Club one because people share lovely stories about the parents that aren't there anymore, or there's like resources, or people set up like events like the one that you and I did last year for the American Mother's Day. We did that live podcast and stuff. And I just think if you can have some sort of control over who you're following or what kind of hashtags you follow on that day or something, then that can be quite useful. Yeah,
no, I agree. I think you're right. I think particularly what you said about depending on what stage you're at in grief, because if it's really raw, it could just wallop you if you start looking and seeing, all these people together. Do you know what? If you think, oh, I'm going to be okay, and you have a look and it hurts, put your phone down.
Yeah.
Put your phone down.
Take a bath.
Watch the footy. No, but seriously, do whatever is going to make you feel good. Do what you like. If you want to eat a massive bar of dairy milk
every night,
do it. I was going to say that's just a Tuesday for me. But just do the things that make you feel good, guilt-free, because you deserve it. A bit of self-love, because that's only the love that you'd be giving out to your mum. So give it to yourself. Treat yourself to a bit of that love. Yeah, and it can even be nice, say, because of the current situation, if you're spending Mother's Day on your own, like you live on your own, maybe literally like plan a day just for you, like literally schedule a whole day out that's dedicated to you or dedicated to them. Yeah. Watching their favourite film, eating their favourite takeout, ringing a friend, try and kind of keep your day kind of structured, but doing things that will kind of fill you with joy. I think kind of waking up and seeing where it takes you might be, you might find that difficult. But actually having a plan, you off a bit. Yeah, but actually having a plan of like really lovely things to look forward to could probably be really beneficial. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And if there's a landmark locally that reminds you of your mother, maybe, or that mother figure, going and visiting that. With someone you live with or someone in your bubble, going and visiting that and talking to them, or that kind of thing, that whatever's going to make you feel closest to them.
Yeah, 100%. If, say, we've got some friends listening to this who haven't actually lost a parent themselves, but sometimes, friends drop in for some kind of advice and tips on how to help a grieving friend, what would you say to them on what to say to their friend who's missing somebody today?
I would say drop them a text first and foremost that just says, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
Because I think that allows them to open up truly to how are you feeling. You're acknowledging.
Not just hope you're okay.
No.
That's really hard to reply to.
Yeah, because then you feel obliged to go,
actually, no, I'm not.
Yeah. I'm a weeping mess.
Sorry to disappoint you. Yeah. I know you're hoping I'm okay, but fact is I'm not today.
P.S. Have a great day with your mum.
Bitch.
Yeah. Text them, how are you feeling? Or pick up the phone and say, how are you feeling? And then, your friend, if they say, yeah, I'm okay, and they're not, you can tell. And even if you think they sound like they are okay, do you want to talk about your mum today?
Yeah.
Would you like to share some
memories? Be direct. I think people are scared of being direct. And that's something that I still notice now. People are scared to bring her up, scared to ask a question. Curiosity is good. And asking a question outright is great.
Because do you know what people with dead parents want to do?
Talk about their dead parents.
Yes. So please ask us, because that's...
I see so many memes and stuff now, which I'm obsessed with. And it's like this really crappy drawing of somebody at a party. There's some stick men dancing in the corner. And there's this person stood in the corner with a beer. And it's like, is this a good time to bring up my dead dad? And it just kills me because I'm like, that is exactly what it's like. You're at a party, you're drunk, and you're like, I want to talk about how shit the fact is that my mum's dead. Ask me at any point, please.
Anybody, because if you don't, I'll just tell you anyway. But it's just ask. And I think once you've experienced that loss, you understand the value of being really direct with people and going, are you all right? Because I know so-and-so's died. Are you okay? And just asking the question outright. The way I see it is a lot of older people lose their filter, right?
Yeah.
And ask you anything. Be that older person. Be my granddad.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Big Keith.
Yes, Big Keith. Do you have any other advice? What would you say?
I feel like, I hate sounding like a broken record, but it is just about listening to yourself and figuring out what's right for you. And also just to remember that it is just a day, like how Christmas is just a day. Sometimes the lead up to it can be really hard. But once it's over, you're like, cool, that's another milestone off the list for this year. I can stop plastering myself up, get ready for the next.
Yeah.
And try and, I don't know, this is just me, but I try and, I'm really awful for this. I try and make people feel as uncomfortable as possible around this day. So, my friends might be saying in the group chat, oh, what's everybody doing on Mother's Day? And I'd be like, oh, crying. What about you? My mum's dead. Or in normal times, I've been out shopping before in the past, getting my friend a birthday present. And the person behind the counter is like, oh, what a lovely gift for your mum. Is this for Mother's Day? And I reply, no, she's dead. And it is just social great. But I'm like, these people learn, maybe ask, oh, who's this for? And then if they say it's for their mum, then lead into, Mother's Day chat. But I'm just like,
But also, we forgive them for assuming that.
Yeah.
I don't hold that against anyone for assuming
you should all know that my mum's dead. Treat me with care.
Did you not look at the billboard I put outside? Because do you know what? People do just assume you're young, you're going to have both parents. So we forgive you for that. It's not, it is okay. And we're going to make them feel really uncomfortable anyway when we say, actually, she's dead. Sorry to break it to you. So, and they will take away from that whatever they take away from that. Kat, tell them how they can get in touch with us.
Okay, so you can email us at hello@deadparentclub.co.uk. We're on Instagram at Dead Parent Club Podcast and Facebook and Twitter. And we'll reply to you. We can give you, tell you what we're doing that day if we're up to anything fun. Yeah.
We're here. We are here for you. And that is ultimately what this podcast is about. It's about you. We're both travelling. Our grief journey will continue until we're no longer here. Mm-hmm. So
I'll be grieving until my deathbed.
Yeah.
100%.
I should be making sure that everybody knows about it.
You can absolutely count on that. I basically want to have my Instagram bio, by the way, my mum's dead.
Yeah. Put that on your CV.
Please ask me about
Greatest
it.
achievement.
I put host of the Dead Parent Club podcast on my CV recently when I got a job last year, and I was very disappointed in my interview when it wasn't brought up, and I couldn't be like, yes, my mum died.
I'm surprised that you didn't go... See the top line here? That's the bit I want to talk about. If we could just reference that, please.
Obviously, naturally, I brought it up as soon as I could when I started the job.
I love it. And now they all know, and they're all listening.
All the time.
5-star reviews, please, guys,
yes,
if you could.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Please rate, please review, and please tune in next week.
Yeah, please do. Is it weird to say I've really enjoyed this?
No, I've absolutely loved it.
I've loved
Let's do it again.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us. Yeah, we will be back with the Dead Parent Club next week, so jump on board.
Have a lovely week, guys, and talk to you very soon.